Hello everyone, it's Sokol, obviously. This video is a little bit different from the style of content I usually make, and that is because if you saw my video on Saturday on Is Jujutsu Kaisen Trash, I essentially went over the main points of like, is it trash, or like why people dislike it, and I gave my own opinions as to like how to refute those arguments essentially, because if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of the show Jujutsu Kaisen. I understand where the love of this show came from. It's a pretty good show, although I will admit it has its own faults, whether it be with like pacing or some character choices. But other than that, obviously, to make that video, I had to search up reasons why people dislike JJK. So I searched it up. I found like the top videos or the top Reddit posts. And this one was one of the main videos. Obviously, it has a really good SEO for what I was looking for. And I'll first give credit where credit is due. So the channel is Realist, and you should go subscribe to them because I'm about to say some really mean things. You should go subscribe to them. I'm sure they're really chill. And in fact, to give credit where credit is due, the main criticism that they had in the video, I actually got it from this video. They did cover like these topics, like this weird topic right here, this weird dynamic. It was talked about in this video. And ironically enough, it was the only one of like the top searches I saw, which included this. But other than this point, like everything else was pretty bad. I don't like this video. I think a lot of their points are very bad. They're either based off of emotion, they're based off of like not knowing, like they just don't really know the story that well. In fact, some of their arguments, it's mean to say, but it's hard to believe that the people who worked on this video actually watched the show, because there are just some things that they say where it's like, if you watch the show, you would know the answer to that. Or if you watch the show, like you would understand the connection or the narrative through line or whatever. And so I just think it's a bad video. And the reason I want to debunk it is because there are a lot of people in the comments who just just use this video to like approve of their ideas of why like they think it's bad or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's like, if you're basing off of this video, you're probably not having the best job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it now, and we're going to talk about it. So let us begin.
So in the hidden inventory arc, Geto becomes this evil dude who has gone so far to the point where he was willing to kill his own parents along with a whole bunch of villagers. Because of this incident, Gojo decides to confront Geto and ask him questions on why he did what he did. After Gojo's useless attempt at talking with Yuta and Geto, Gojo tries to kill, or at the very least, attack Geto, in which he couldn't. Now, from an audience's perspective, we can infer that Gojo wasn't able to do it because Geto was his best friend.
Yeah, that's exactly why he couldn't do it. They were best friends. The world of Jujutsu Kaisen is a really bad world. Geto went bad because of Toji's actions. But the reason, he couldn't kill him because they were best friends. The whole world views Gojo and Geto for their strength. At the time, at the beginning of the hidden arc, they were the two strongest, and everyone only viewed them as such. They were tools. They were known for their utility. And it even echoed later in the series. Megumi, Yuji, they all see Gojo only for his strength, not his personality or his personhood. Because Geto, at the beginning of the hidden inventory arc, was as strong as Gojo, he could see Gojo as a person instead of just his strength. And because of that, it's not like they were kinda or maybe best friends. No, they were absolutely best friends. You don't even have to like, you can just listen to the show in the background and pick up on this very easily. And the reason Gojo was so hurt by Geto's words when he said that, oh, are you the strongest because you're Satoru Gojo, or are you Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest? It hurt Gojo because at this point in time, Gojo had gotten stronger, and Geto, being on his different path, relinquished all the personhood from Gojo and basically boiled him down to his strength like everyone else has. Very hurtful thing to say, but just because it was hurtful doesn't mean that he was just going to murk Geto on the spot for it. Like, no, it was still his best friend in his mind. Although it hurt, it was an argument between best friends. In his heart, it was his best friends, which is why he couldn't kill him.
Wasn't able to do it because Geto was his best friend. And it's not so easy to have yourself make a tough decision like that. But didn't Gojo have zero problems with killing Geto and JJK 0?
Yeah, see, this is disingenuous because you're missing a lot of steps between point A and point B. Keep in mind, at this point in time, just to make a little timeline here, Gojo and Geto are around 16, 17 years old. They're still in their teen years. When Gojo killed Geto, he is he is like he is an adult. He is like late 20s, early 30s. This is like a decade. This is a decade or so later than when that took place. This is 10 years after the fact. And he makes it sound like he killed him with like no issue. Like it was just a super simple thing that he could do.
From a hesitant person not being able to kill his best friend to a person who was able to actually commit by putting his emotions aside
yeah, so like he essentially saying that he could just do it. Like he's like, oh, there was just no issue or whatever. It's not there was no issue. Remember, this is a decade past that point previously. There's 10 years where Gojo could have been seeking Geto and found a way to kill Geto. There are arguments that say like Geto was in hiding or whatever, but it's not really implied that he was. He was kind of out and about. He was kind of known for what he was doing, how many curses he had stolen and whatever. Gojo could have killed him at any point. The only reason he had killed him at this point was because at this point in time, Gojo had made the decision to foster the new generations in order to overthrow the Jujutsu Society and form a better one because of how Jujutsu Society had treated him and his best friend when they were children, and he doesn't want that to continue. Geto had kind of forced his hand because Geto, at this point in time, had attacked the students and attacked the youth and basically tried to destroy what Gojo was working on. So just because Gojo did it doesn't mean that it was any easier of a decision. Geto had forced his hand to do so.
No shown development. His character completely switched up, and we were in.
And you don't need shown development. And this is just something that is like blatant throughout the show. It was a very tough decision. He always loved Geto as a friend, and he had forced his hand up to this point. He had to. He had no other choice. In fact, I think before he killed him, he even said it one more time, like, "You're my best friend," and then had to have killed him. He had to have killed him.
Dude, Geto literally murdered a whole bunch of innocent people, groomed little girls, and stayed a racist until the very end. Why are you being apologetic towards this person? I don't care. Even if he was your best friend, I don't care. You shouldn't be hyping a school shooter up. What happened to—
Yeah, see, this is like an argument from emotion that I was talking about. It's like because he wouldn't have been friends with Geto that Gojo shouldn't be able to do the same. The thing is, Geto had killed his parents, stolen those girls. He says groom, but there's no indication of the story that they were groomed. In fact, they have a pretty familial relationship, kind of like father-daughter. But other than that, like Geto had killed his parents at this point in time. Right here, this Geto that Gojo is currently looking at had already killed his parents and like the 274 people. He was already off the rocker way early in their career, and Gojo still couldn't kill him. And in fact, like I said earlier, here he was still forced to kill him. So here, because he still has like soft emotions for Geto, even after like being forced to kill him, it makes sense. He always had those soft emotions, even after he had done those despicable things. So,
and it's to society, someone who is too dangerous to be left alive. This man Gojo is acting inconsistent as hell, bouncing back.
There's nothing inconsistent about it. Everything makes sense. If you just keep your eyes on the show, it's a pretty straight narrative through line. Gojo always loved Geto.
One thing I would like to touch upon, and it's a recurring issue we see throughout JJK, is pointless villain of the week bullshit, such as the God and the Endless Dude at the start of Hidden Inventory, and the guy that came back to life somehow and has a hand sword but was never really used in an interesting way.
Okay, so they don't like villains of the week or whatever, and this, I understand what they're talking about, like there's just too many villains to keep track of or whatever, but this isn't like a villain of the week. The Shibuya arc was, I don't even know how to describe it. The Shibuya arc was a war, essentially. Just to put it like in the most common sense thing ever. The whole thing was a plan to get Gojo isolated so that Kenjaku could seal Gojo, and in order to do that, they had to keep all the other sorcerers that were in the area away so that they couldn't halter their plan, so that they could only focus on Gojo himself. Dagon is not a villain of the week. Dagon is one of the disaster curses. The disaster curses have been introduced. Even Dagon, you've seen Dagon in the first season. This guy too, he was introduced in the first season. They were both very big problems. Dagon's domain is what we see the villains hiding in. He was God, what was it? Like the Goodwill arc, I believe it was called. That's where he was. These guys were obviously just invited to keep the sorcerers back, and that's exactly what they did. This guy specifically, with his team of Granny and the other, the Granny's, I don't know if it's a son or her like son or something, but they were set there to keep the veils open. So these aren't like really villains of the week. They were all concocted there for a plan to keep sorcerers back, to keep them away from Gojo, so that Gojo could be sealed.
Nor was he a threat other than Nobara and another forgettable character. This takes away from the seriousness and ruins the pacing of the show. Talking about pacing.
I don't think it takes away from the seriousness. Yeah, maybe it takes away from the stakes, but just like what else would you have them do? Would you just rather have the sorcerers just wandering around with no issue and then just not being able to find Gojo? It just makes the story so less likable. They were there to keep the sorcerers occupied.
Do you guys remember the start of Hidden Inventory arc with Urahane and Mei? Well, that first episode was complete filler and was only there to hit the 5-episode mark for Hidden Inventory.
I don't think this one really matters. I mean, it was still fun. That was a fun episode. It wasn't the best episode, but that was fine.
Where it was mostly no action and pointless dialogue. It's almost like they're telling us to quit on the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'll admit it was the weaker of the 5 episodes. But it wasn't a bad episode. It was a pretty good establishing to like the prequel sequel thing that they were going for. It set up the tone for the rest of the 4 episodes. It was an okay show. It was not bad.
The entire main goal for the Hidden Inventory arc was for Gojo and Geto to set out on a mission to find Riko, who is known for being the Star Plasma Vessel, chosen to be the vessel for Tengen's merger. It's important for them to find this girl and take her to Tengen because Tengen is supposed to be this character who protects the barriers of Jujutsu society, and if Tengen doesn't merge with a vessel, he's gonna evolve into something ugly. Now, unfortunately, Riko gets killed by Toji. Oh shit, now that the Star Plasma Vessel is dead, what's gonna happen with the Tengen?
Okay, I'll understand. Even I was kind of thrown back when I first saw this. But what happens is, Tengen needs to merge with the new Star Plasma Vessels, otherwise he will mutate, he will transform, essentially. Or evolve, that's a better way to put it, right? And the fear with Tengen evolving is if he evolves to a point where just too high of an evolution status that he won't really care about humanity, and in fact he might even turn on humanity. But nowhere in the show does it really state that it takes one evolution for him to happen. It never does it state that. In fact, because Riko dies, he actually does evolve, but he's still stable. That's what they mean. They even make us mention that, yeah, like Tengen is still stable. This statement right here, a lot of people think like, this like means that there are no consequences. That's not true. Star Plasma Vessel is there's always one present, I think, and it's just so that they can merge with Tengen. That's what this statement is saying. There is a new Star Plasma Vessel, or a Star Plasma Vessel has been born after Riko's death. So for any future evolutions, he'll have one ready, and so he doesn't evolve again. The fear of him evolving is that he'll turn against humanity, but it doesn't need the first evolution to happen for that to happen. It could be like a few down the line. So as long as they don't keep messing it up and not delivering the Star Plasma Vessel, then it'll be problematic. Yeah, Tengen is stable.
Are you fucking kidding me? This whole time you're telling me there was another vessel for Tengen's merger?
There's another one that was born after Riko's death.
There was supposed to be a consequence for Tengen, not
there was a consequence for Tengen.
Just like that.
He did evolve. There was a consequence. If this happens, they don't actually state how many more times it needs to happen, but the thing is that eventually it will. And that these failures can't just keep happening. Otherwise, Tengen will become unstable. He will evolve to the point where he doesn't care about humanity or turns against humanity.
Where he completely pulls the rug and tells the audience that they literally had nothing to worry about in regards
they
to
do have things to worry about. They can't keep alive. There's no way they would know how many it takes. I don't think there's a way for them to know. So might as well just keep him stable. And the fear that if he became unstable after the first one, then they have failed. This is just a coincidence, a happenstance, if you will.
Another vessel that existed after Riko died. So one of the main problems I've had with JJK Season 2
I know this
is
argument.
the frequent usage of resurrection. Like Mekamaru, for example.
Mechamaru wasn't resurrected. He made a binding vow in order to warn the people of the plot in Shibuya. He did die.
Now, I understand that Mechamaru technically wasn't resurrected because of curse technique shenanigans, but
Yeah.
come the fuck on. The dude was conscious enough to be able to have full-fledged conversations with the Kyoto students, help give the Jujutsu sorcerers information about Gojo, help Yuji fight Chozo. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing crazy about that. It didn't ruin the stakes or anything. He had made a binding vow that if Gojo got sealed, then it would give him enough cursed energy to be able to pull this stuff off. But if Gojo was never sealed, this would have never happened. This doesn't break the story. He's not there in the flesh. He is literally just a walkie-talkie.
you might as well consider it resurrection. If
No,
Mechamaru
he
was
might
able
as
to
well
come
not.
back to quote-unquote life, what was the whole point of his death? Mechamaru
The
had
point of his death was to reveal that there was a traitor amongst them and that they wouldn't just allow him to go back and give everyone a warning. Otherwise, they would have never fallen for the trap. It's pretty simple.
the ability to come back to life as a walkie-talkie literally came out of nowhere. His only purpose in the
It
story
was
for
a
Shibuya was
binding
to give
vow.
out
We
exposition.
know that binding vows exist in the series. They can be used for a lot of versatile things. This is just one of those applications.
He became a literal plot
Oops.
device so that the characters don't look stupid as hell because of Mechamaru's return.
The characters did still look stupid. Shibuya, I mean, the best way you can put it was Shibuya was an L for the heroes. Even with Mechamaru, they did get outplayed, so to speak. You know what I mean? Obviously it could have been worse, but Mechamaru didn't change or give. He gave him an advantage, but there's nothing that they could use on in order to have successfully saved Gojo.
The next time when a character dies, I'm not going to be able to feel that same level of closure because all I'm going to think is, maybe there will be some unknown technique that was never established earlier in the story that will be able to bring this character back in action.
You're reading too deep into it. This isn't like a Dragon Ball. This isn't like a Dragon Ball scenario where there's just Dragon Balls and they're just gonna keep wishing people back to life. Yeah, this was a circumstance, but that doesn't mean it just happens to everyone. Like everyone who dies, like you're gonna be disappointed. Like let's just say that, and you go throughout the show with that in mind.
See, now, I can just think, okay, one character was resurrected, the story feels pretty sloppy, but, I'm gonna just let it slide.
What? And I just don't like how you keep saying that one character he wasn't resurrected. Mechamaru is dead. He's not coming back. Yeah, he came back as you said, a walkie-talkie due to a binding vow that he created with Gojo in order to. But it's not like he came back. He's not just walking around like, oh, Mechamaru's death didn't matter. Mechamaru's death did matter. He is gone. He is exited. Stage left. He is out of the series. He gave them some advice, sure, maybe close his arc with Miwa, but that is it. Mechamaru did not have any meaningful comeback.
Like this one time. Oh,
This is also disingenuous. Toji came back, quote unquote, came back. This guy, Granny's technique. Let me just do it here. Granny's technique allows this guy, I don't know if it's her son or whatever, to inhabit the body of whatever seance technique that they utilize. In this case, they had a piece of Toji, and this guy turned into Toji. But he was never supposed to become Toji. He was just supposed to look like Toji and have his abilities. But because of Toji's heavily restricted body, he was able to take over this guy's soul. But even because he took it over, he wasn't Toji. It's not like he didn't just leave and like go back to just, I don't know, taking up bounties and living his best life and wasting it on gambling. He was a puppet that just looked for combat. It was never Toji. It was just a puppet that looked like Toji and had his abilities and strength. And Toji, even after this point, for the small period of time that he was back, it wasn't really Toji.
oh, 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 oh. So in episode 11, we're showing two characters, this one old-ass grandma and her grandson. Apparently the grandma has the ability to summon Toji by using her grandson as the vessel. So I guess now there's multiple ways in which a character can be brought back.
No, there's not multiple ways. There was a binding vow, which did not bring him back to life, and her curse technique is the seance technique. And she's, let's just say she's not around anymore. So Toji took care of that. And she never really brought people back to life. He was just supposed to transform and have the powers for whatever X amount of time. So
the story.
She's not Dragon Ball.
We don't even know how many more ways Gege could think of by pulling them straight out of his ass. A lot of people think this fight is really good, and from an entertainment perspective,
it is really good.
I can totally see why this fight is enjoyable to watch, but if you were to sit down for a moment and just think, you'll realize how the writing of this fight is really forced and fan service.
Okay.
Because of the events leading up to his summoning by the old lady and the grandson, the Toji that was fighting Megumi was acting purely on instinct, seeking the strongest opponent he could find within his vicinity. Toji eventually stops himself when he looks at Megumi's face and realizes that he might have been fighting his son this whole entire time, and decides to kill himself so that he could avoid killing his own son out of instinct. Now, this is cool and all, but the motherfucker was fighting Megumi and had a good look at his face for a solid 5 minutes. It's not like Megumi was wearing a ski mask this whole time and his mask fell off at the last second, making Toji realize who he was fighting.
Okay. So basically his argument is that Toji was fighting Megumi for a while and he didn't realize he was fighting his son until the very end. Why is that when he could see his face the whole time? Yes, he did see his face the whole time, but you're supposing that Toji just knows what an adult Megumi would look like. Remember, Toji hasn't seen Megumi since he was like a toddler. He had sold him when he was a child to the Zenin clan, and then he hadn't seen him since. In fact, he had even forgotten his name. And until, yeah, that's correct. I just realized that he had forgotten Megumi's name. He had forced it out of his brain. And it wasn't until like the moments before his death where he barely even remembered what Kid Megumi looked like. Because of that, you can't, and as he said, Toji was never operating with his full brain capacity. He was only acting on instinct. So even if he did see it, it's not like he's actively looking for the similarities between Megumi and adult Megumi and Kid Megumi. There's just no way to insinuate that he knows that what adult Megumi looks like, and B, that he is actively looking for the similarities between the adult Megumi and the Kid Megumi. And Megumi also hasn't ever seen his father or at any point which he can remember. So it's disingenuous to say that they would know, they would just see each other and at first like, oh, you're my dad, you're my kid. No, it wasn't until after the fact. It's unclear what caused the trigger for him to realize that he was fighting his son. Many people believe that it was that winning instinct. Many people say that it was the curse technique. Many people say it was the plan that he had formulated and that is like, oh man, like, yo, that's kind of something that I feel like that's something that my son would be able to pull off or something. Something that snapped him back to reality. Maybe even when he got closer and had some sort of instinctual sense. Whatever the case is, you can't just say that, oh, just because he saw his face, he should automatically know it was Megumi and then ended himself. Like, it's a disingenuous thing to say.
You know, the level of contrivance of this fight is so bad that it's led to some Gege gaggers to make theories about how Toji had Alzheimer's or some sort of...
There's nothing contrived about this. I know you want it to feel like it's contrived, but there's nothing contrived about this. I mean, again, Toji didn't remember Megumi's name when we first see him. When he was alive and fully functioning, wasn't until his death where he had a hazy memory of what Kid Megumi looked like. And he was dead throughout the entire growing up process of Megumi. So it's not contrived. He doesn't know what he looks like, nor is he functioning at full brain capacity to deduce it.
Mental illness.
Or deduce it immediately, at least.
But I've also heard arguments saying maybe Toji didn't immediately recognize his son because, you know, he hasn't seen him in over a decade.
Yeah!
I think the best way for the fight to not feel forced is to give us a better understanding of Toji's mental state and to hint that there is something about Megumi that Toji is subconsciously aware of but isn't quite sure what it is.
Maybe. See, this isn't bad. That could have been shown, but again, doesn't really need to be shown. It's just deduced by the end of the fight, like, oh my god, like, low-key, this guy might be my son. And he wasn't even sure about it. He had to ask him, what's your name? And then once he did find out, hey, it is Megumi, and his last name is Fushiguro instead of Zenin, then he was like, alright, you know what? This is my son. He didn't fall down the bad path in the Zenin clan. He's chilling. I'm gonna end myself off to not give him any further trouble because I can't control myself. This is just like a fanfic kind of like what you would have wanted to happen. Okay, this is true. I agree with him here.
Nobara. Where do I start? Where do I start to talk about this dog shit of a character? Now,
We got a Nobara hater. I like Nobara, so we're gonna see. I forgot about this argument, so we have to see.
Nobara isn't just dog shit. She's textbook definition of one-dimensional. The only thing Nobara's death accomplished was making me feel complete happiness to know we won't get or have a dog shit character like.
Nobara she wasn't the most in-depth character, but that's because we didn't really learn anything about her until her final moments. But just because of that doesn't make Nobara one-dimensional. Nobara has a lot of pretty interesting qualities. Qualities aren't really seen within any other female character within the show. Her ability to have like a lot of self-confidence in her fighting capabilities and being kind of enjoying the fight while also being into like the girly things. It's not one-dimensional, so to speak. But I can understand that maybe she's not as in-depth as the characters like Megumi, Yuji, Gojo. But I don't understand where this absolute hatred of her is coming from. It just seems like a personal distaste that he has and that he is using to further elaborate his thing. Nobara's death did also have a lot of impact, not on the story, but on Yuji. Her death was what kind of caused him to have a panic attack because throughout the whole thing, throughout the entire Shibuya arc, he was having the hardest time killing transfigured humans, finding out Nanami's death, and it wasn't until Nobara's death where it was also within like the Sukuna things, and then Nobara's death where it really kind of gave him a panic attack, kind of took away his entire will to fight, and in fact, he would have died. He would have died if it wasn't for Todo because of Nobara's death. Nobara's death what sent him to this lowest point we've probably ever seen, at least so far within the anime. And him being able to come back up and keep persevering through his values and what he initially came up for was more impactful because of her death.
Like that in JJK's story. But let me back up and explain why. Now, when we see Nobara, she is nothing but a complete arsehole and a piece of shit to Yuji for no good reason. JJK isn't a tsundere simulator. We don't need characters that act as their only use being to tear down our MC or tear down anyone that excels further than them, aka being Maki's whole persona, as we see with Yuta and JJK 0.
I see.
You see,
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna let her finish.
there is fucking nothing to talk about her character other than her being a complete ass to Yuji with that.
That's not true. That was her introduction, yes. Obviously, she has like a little bit of distaste for the world. This is kind of shown by like how she was grown up. She always didn't fit in, maybe due to her ability to see curses or whatnot. So she is kind of rude to many people when she was first introduced, but she isn't throughout the entirety of the story. Nobara is pretty playful, especially when it comes to characters like Panda, or even when she hit the Black Flash. When she was with Yuji, they had a pretty deep conversation. She was very empathetic towards him. Like, hey, don't think about it. Like, I know you just killed some humans, but it's all right. Like, don't think about it. You're making the world a better place or whatever. She is not always an asshole. Maki as well. Maki is... you can't just like look at one instance of these characters being like rude or passive aggressive or whatever. Thing is, Maki's not here to play around. Maki is here to become strong enough and basically tear down the entire Zenin clan and their whole sexist regime. She's not here to play around. So when he showed that Yuta clip, obviously she was very frustrated with Yuta at that point, and she needed him to get himself together and focus on getting them out of this thing because they would have died at that point. But Maki is not always an asshole. She has a big connection with her friends. If you watch the Zero movie, she cares a lot for Yuta as well as her other friends. And so the only character I can really give like, man, they are antagonistic in nature is Urahime to Gojo. We don't know why she hates him so much. Maybe because he picks on her a lot. But that's the only character I'm like, okay, she is clearly induced to be antagonistic and hatred and vile towards a character, but she has her own reasons as well. The women characters aren't always, including Nobara, which is the one he hates, they aren't just vile and antagonistic and rude in nature.
Being said, Nobara's death does anything but conclude her character. They gave us one of the most pointless backstories that did nothing to impact the story at all. No,
Okay. See, I'm gonna cut it out now. Her death did have an impact on Yuji specifically. She was the catalyst, not the catalyst. She was like the final nail in the coffin to get him to his lowest point in that huffing and puffing anxiety, ready for Mahito to kill him at his lowest point. Yes, she was kind of killed off pretty quickly, but that just goes to show that that kind of takes away from the point of what they were saying here. Resurrection, people can just come back to life. It really means nothing. She was just killed off, man. Her story wasn't concluded. She was part of the big three, part of the main cast, and she was just removed, which is kind of scary to think about. Like, if they could remove her, who else could they remove? Who else's story do we like? The Gege would have killed off this person because he has a story to finish. Nope, he has clearly shown time and time again that he would kill off characters even if their stories aren't concluded. Makes the stakes even higher.
or did it do anything for her character? It was a basic run-of-the-mill story.
Yeah, it didn't really
which
do
I
anything
thought
for her
season one
character.
did an already okay job on. All it really did was, I guess, somewhat motivate Yuji to fight Mahito.
Somewhat motivate. No, it did not somewhat motivate Yuji. It broke Yuji. Toto had to come in and lift Yuji's spirits and like, yo, get back on that horse. This was not a motivating scene. This was the soul crushing scene. And yes, it did nothing to Nobara's character. Nobara's character, as far as we could tell, is ended. Preemptively so.
But then that assumption got completely fucking destroyed when Yuji refers to Nanami and making only Nanami proud by killing Mahito, which is a complete slap into the face of all Nobara fans. And how
Yeah, I can kind of see this. Yeah, he does pay homage, like, yo, Nanami, like, I'm doing this for you. When Mahito did also kill Nobara, so maybe, yeah, I understand this. I do understand this a little bit. But really, it's the only valid point he had of Nobara throughout this whole thing. Female characters within Jujutsu Kaisen, especially Nobara, yeah, I can clearly tell he has some distaste for Nobara. They're treated a lot. Well, up until a certain point, they're treated a lot better until most other females in Shonen. But she's not a one-dimensional character. Her death wasn't pointless. It did serve a purpose, in this case for Yuji. And yeah, her character isn't just defined by her being like antagonistic towards the male cast like Yuji. No, that is something someone would say who hasn't probably watched her fight within the Goodwill, probably hasn't watched her fights against the what is it called, the Blood Demon Brothers? I forgot their names. I feel so bad. Choso's brothers, essentially. So yeah.
How can I forget the people on Twitter that would glaze the hell out of
Here we
JJK's
go.
female cast being so great and so universal?
They are pretty good. They are pretty good. Maki, so there's a little bit of spoilers in the panels here. Maki's character is pretty goated. I liked Nobara. I like Nobara's character. I think she was pretty badass. Yuki was also great. You know, I'm not going to go into spoilers here. Obviously, she was done dirty kind of later in the show due to Gege's really fast-paced writing. He wanted the story to be at some certain place, and he kind of did it at the expense of Yuki. There's not really any other female characters that like I really like that much. I guess Shoko is pretty cool. I know a lot of people like Miwa, and Mei is just a demon, and yeah, just not, you know. It exhibits the bad things that we don't like about JJK, so I'll give him that. But what other female cast are you going to compare them to? Naruto's cast? I mean, maybe within part one, Tsunade, maybe Tsunade. I could give her that one. Who else? Like who else? Like it was Sakura, Ino. Like maybe Sakura throughout. Like when in her fight with Sasori, maybe I could give that one too. Maybe. Dragon Ball, we already know Dragon Ball's historical past with female characters. Doesn't look very bright. I can't really think of any other ones. We haven't really seen much of the female characters within the anime of Demon Slayer so far. What, MHA? I don't know. Like really, not to say that JJK has the best, you know, like a perfect female cast and they represent their female cast perfectly, but in comparison, that's not that bad. In comparison, comparatively speaking. And obviously, I only know shonen. So if you're like bringing up some like other kind of obscure, maybe slice of life, and I don't know. I watch fighting animes, so.
So people would refer to JJK's female cast as the best representation when it's just the same character.
I like Riko too. Riko is a very engaging character.
Personality.
So screw you. Okay.
Now, remember how we talked about Nanami's death being a staple of the show and how they greatly impacted JJK and Yuji storytelling-wise? Now, let's make all these trials and tribulations that Yuji has been through and climbed through, the hours and hours of character development, his overwhelming breaking point to understanding that Mahito and himself are the same, and the amazing speech that Yuji gives, signifying how far he has come. And now let's make that all for nothing. Now, something that made me have a complete distaste and dislike of JJK when I found this out is Mahito's death. And what I mean by that was how he was killed.
Okay, this is nitpicky. I don't like how he said that. When I found that out. What do you mean found that? You mean when you watched it? Did you watch it, or did someone tell you? You know what I mean? All right, let's see where he goes. That's just a nitpick. That's a nitpick. I swear to God, it was a nitpick. But let's see where he goes, because already his. Okay.
Throughout season 1, we see Mahito as a threat and an uncontrollable monster that no one could stop. He had been mass murdering and serving under Kenjaku for a while now.
Not that no one could stop. He was kind of.
That was his whole
it was
character,
relatable due to his humor.
As they represent two different outlooks on life. Mahito being from negative human emotions, and Yuji holds the weight of his friends and people that have fallen, and wants to carry their wishes that were placed upon him, such as Nanami, and we see that with Tojo and Yuji, like we had explained earlier. And now, with everything built up, setting, and then we have this motherfucker Kenjaku stood there. And what does Gege do?
Oh, I see.
He takes countless chapters worth of struggles our character goes through, and Kenjaku eats him. Gege.
Okay, I see. So basically, you're saying that all that build up between Yuji and Mahito, their parallels, was just taken by Kenjaku. Nah, I don't really agree. The parallels he draws are also a little bit inconsistent. The parallels between Yuji and Mahito, and when he says "I'm you," is because they act on their instincts. Obviously, Mahito has the instincts of a curse. Because of that, he does whatever he pleases. Yuji's instincts are something that was ingrained with him. Like you said, kind of hoping for... how does he describe it? It was like proper deaths or whatever, right? And then that's kind of what he aims for people to achieve, even though he kind of doesn't know what that is. And he takes on the wills of all the people that have brought so far. And when he says that I'm you, that is like, oh, we're both creatures that act on our baser instincts. And then Yuji came to terms with it. And to be fair, even though Yuji didn't kill him, that story was set and done. Mahito was broken, absolutely brutalized, with the wolf and the rabbit imagery. That was Yuji collecting his dues. Although Yuji didn't kill him, that was the pin between those two characters. Between the story between those two characters. Although Yuji didn't kill him, obviously there was another purpose for Kenjaku to take Mahito. Maybe you personally don't like that, but there's no narrative complications that come to Yuji not killing Mahito. Yuji had clearly won the battle at that point in time. There's nothing really to maybe there's like a personal disliking you having for it, but there's no narrative dislikings or issues that come with it.
What were you thinking? Why would you do that? What was the point of Yuji's speech? Worthless dialogue through and throughout, pure nothingness.
This was not nothing. This is what mattered. That speech is what mattered more than him killing Mahito. For example, if we were to choose two timelines, one where Yuji gives the speech and then Kenjaku takes it and like finishes off Mahito, or where Yuji doesn't give the speech and then he kills Mahito. The former would be more impactful than the latter, because that former thing is that connection, that through line, that pin, and that victory over Mahito was what he needed, not the actual killing of Mahito.
Mahito should have died in season 1 and then be replaced with a far more interesting villain. Gege had so many options to...
Mahito was a very interesting villain. Killing him off would have just been wasted. All that stuff with Junpei and all that would have been wasted. Why would he have just killed him right there? He needed him later in the story. It would have been worthless for him to kill him with Nanami. Yeah, or not worthless, but it wouldn't have been as impactful as it was later within the Shibuya arc. As you stated earlier, how you like Nanami in his finish, he needed to be there in order for that to happen and make it as impactful as it was due to their previous connection within the fight in the first season.
Utilize him in the correct way, but I guess Gege would have it where everything that Yuji and Mahito led to was for nothing. Oh well, this is a common trait from Gege, I guess. What can we really do about it?
Yeah, it's not for nothing. There's not really that many instances. Yeah, he's relating like, oh, he does this a lot based on these things, but really, he hasn't displayed any main points of like why Gege does this very often. Not saying that he doesn't. He does do this a few times, especially later within. If you read a lot, he does characters dirty like this, but that was not one of those instances.
Last thing I want to touch on, since this is one of the last things we see for season 2, is how is Rika back? I thought she disappeared at the end of JJK 0. Now people are probably going to explain how it is something to do with curse technique BS. The point is, why the hell would you...
It's not curse technique BS. The curse technique is the reason why there is a Rika. And that's kind of what I'm saying. He's done this a couple times where he kind of gives an answer to his own things, but he doesn't accept those answers. So the reason Rika is still around, even though at the end of 0, Rika is supposedly gone, is because there's a delineation you need to make. There is Rika, the human, or in this case, we're going to break her down to her soul. Rika, the soul, which is the little girl, the soul of the little girl. And then before, when she dies, when she gets hit by the car, Yuta manifests his curse technique and curses her. That's his curse technique. He had cursed Rika. So you have Rika the soul cursed by a curse technique, which is also named Rika. So now we have two delineations. You have Rika the soul, the girl, and then Rika the curse technique. Rika the curse technique was imbued into Rika's soul, right? So which is why throughout the 0 movie, Rika is one and the same. When they refer to Rika the curse technique, they refer to Rika the soul. Oh, you have to free Rika. Rika the soul is because it is held down or cursed by Yuta with his curse technique, right? So throughout the entire 0 movie, what he wanted to do was remove that curse technique, that Rika, the cursed Rika, off of the soul of the little girl Rika, and then imbue it into his blade or imbue it into his ring or whatever, right? That was the purpose of that whole movie. He had cursed the soul of Rika, and once he had finally relinquished the soul of Rika of that curse of Rika, then the soul of Rika was able to go on to the afterlife or whatever the finish is in JJK. And because that is gone, now he can manifest only the curse Rika, not the soul of the little girl of Rika. So that makes sense. He brushes off as, oh, it's something curse technique. Yeah, it's because it is a curse technique. It is directly related to the curse technique of Yuta, the curse that he had put on Rika's soul.
Create such an emotional scene for the audience, manufacture feelings of loss just to say you were sad for Rika in JJK 0? You're an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. That is how Rika works. So for anyone who is curious, that is why Rika is a thing, even though Rika was sent off. The soul of Rika left. The actual curse of Rika, he can still has and utilize. It's his curse technique. He doesn't like that, apparently. He's calling it, I don't know if that's why he called it stupid. I think it was if you were emotional because of it. Yeah, it was an emotional scene. He had cursed, the love of his life, so to speak. But that's really all I have for you today. That's really all. That was a video. Obviously, you could tell why I didn't like it. Most of the video, I sat here and watched it and talked about it. Like I said, I just don't think they've really watched the show fully. They probably had it on in the background or watched clips or something like that. There's a lot of things that could have been explained. There's a lot of things that they actually, explained themselves, but they just didn't like the answers that it led them to due to bias or whatever reason they have for not liking the show. But yeah, I don't think this video was very good. But just because I don't think this video is good, doesn't mean I think the creators of this video are bad people. I'm sure they're good people, and I think you should maybe they have good takes on other things. They just weren't cooking on this video. But that's really all I have for today. If y'all enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you want me to talk about anything else or like go over anything else, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, that's really all I got for y'all today. So have a great day and peace out.